Thank you so much for coming. I know it's like early Vegas time. This is like the equivalent of 6 a.m. Regular time. My name is Sarah Thomson. I work with PlayStation. I work on the free-to-play team. So I work with the wonderful, magical Gio Corsi, who was on stage yesterday during our keynote. I also have one of my teammates here, John Eternal. He's in the audience here. So we're going to have a really fun panel today. We've got a lot of panelists with a lot of really cool, interesting, hopefully controversial things to say about free-to-play. So the way this is going to go down, we've got an hour. I'm going to do a very quick little intro, kind of talk about what the PlayStation team in our region is doing and what we're trying to achieve with free-to-play games specifically. And then what we'll do is we'll go down the row of panelists, and if all of you can introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump into some lively discussion and debate. And then if anyone has any questions, start thinking of questions now, and I'll leave a few minutes at the end of the session if you'd like to pop up to one of the mics here. Make sure you go to the mic, because this is being recorded for all of our friends who couldn't make it, and feel free to ask your questions. Sound good? Cool. Okay. Let's begin. Let's start off with some awesome pixelated screen grabs of my team. This is all I could find. Thank you, Facebook. So myself, Sarah Thomson, John Eternal, and Saul, who's tirelessly working down in the booth area. Feel free to come and say hi to us while you're at the show. We make up the free-to-play team. We are small, we are scrappy, but we have a lot of fun, and our team is pretty new. We've really only been around for a little under a year, and free-to-play, while not a new concept and has been around for many years on PC and a few years on mobile now, we are fairly new to it within PlayStation and console, and so it's something that we feel has massive potential. We're really excited about it. I've drank the free-to-play Kool-Aid many years ago, and I really believe that it's going to be a big part of our future, a big part of our digital business, and something that we're going to be really making great efforts to build a really interesting cross-section of games for you and kind of, ultimate free-to-play experiences on PlayStation platforms. So, what do we do as a team? Kind of summed up here. We strike a lot of deals. We do a lot of assisting and onboarding of content, answering the tough questions, helping to reduce their pain points. And I think probably the funnest part of our job is getting to go to a lot of shows and going to a lot of events and just getting out there into the field and talking to up-and-coming developers or developers who are on mobile or PC who have really interesting free-to-play experiences who haven't really thought of console and realize that now we're actually doing a pretty decent job of supporting free-to-play games. So we get to scout out cool new games, and we get to strike strategic partnerships with games that we feel are really embodying what a PlayStation game is, and forming really strong bonds and relationships, hopefully for the long term, with developers such as these fine folks here, and then just doing sort of the everyday assistance and service to make sure that they're able to bring their game on board our platform and run it as games as a service, which is obviously a lot harder than kind of a typical premium game. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of fun, and we love working with our developers. Okay, so this is our awesome list of panelists here, and that brings my little spiel to an end. So I think what we can do now is we can go down the line. If you'd like to say your name, what your role is at the company, what your company is, and what your title is, or your game title is, that would be great for the audience. And I guess we can start right here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lance Hoke. I'm a senior producer at Robot Entertainment, working on Orcs Must Die Unchained. We just announced yesterday that we're going to be released on PS4 in 2015.
Hi, I'm Alexander Bergendahl, CEO of Poppermost Productions, an indie developer from Sweden. We are working on Snow. It's the first free-to-play open-world winter sports game coming out on PS4 next year.
I'm Steve Sinclair. I'm creative director on Warframe. I work for Digital Extremes, and Warframe's been out for about a year on PS4, and that's it.
I'm Matt Higbee. I'm the creative director at SOE on PlanetSide 2. And we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary, and we're looking forward to launching on the PS4.
I'm Brad Loxton, senior producer on Dungeon Defenders 2, and yesterday we announced that we're going to be coming exclusively to PS4 in 2015.
I'm Walter Badgett, senior designer at Edge of Reality. We work on Loadout. We are out on PC, and we're coming to PS4 on December 16th, so real soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I just have to say, I'm so excited for all of the amazing games we have, and kudos to my team and all of the amazing deals they've been able to strike and that we continue to partner with. And I think we've got some really fantastic content coming and existing content on the platform for free to play. So thank you so much for coming, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, I've got my list of questions.
Here we go.
Here. So we'll start off just with kind of setting the scene and building some foundation around you guys and your personal experience with free to play. So if we can start off, and we can, whoever wants to jump in and answer, why free to play games? Why is your company, and why are you making, designing, building, running free to play games? What's been your journey to free to play? Whoever would like to start.
I'll go. We started really looking into and working on free-to-play games a while ago, actually. We were about in 2007, 2008, working on free-to-play at SOE. And from that point on, most of the games that we've been developing have been developed as free-to-play models from the get-go, with DCUO being the notable exception. But we released a game called Free Realms, which was a free-to-play kids game. And we learned a lot from that. We learned a lot about how to set up our our platform and our monetization setup, and we built our station cache setup and all that around the time of Free Realms, and we were able to take that knowledge and use that to kind of go back into our other more premium games and add free-to-play elements into those. And then since then, we've also done Clone Wars Adventures, which was another free-to-play kids-focused game, and then, of course, PlanetSide 2. Why free-to-play? I think that the fundamental bargain that is offered to players with free-to-play is that if you come in and you join our game and you like our game and you really like it, it's a good game that you enjoy, then maybe you'll ship us a couple bucks for continuing to make stuff for it. And that fundamental, I think, agreement that the developers and the players have, I think is a really good one for both audiences. It allows us, especially folks who are making massively multiplayer games, to get the kind of scale of players into their games that you really need to have to be able to make the full, rich world that massively multiplayer games really need. And it doesn't require them to have a massive time or monetary investment up front to be able to get in and play it. So for us, it makes a lot of sense. And as long as we're continuing to make the kind of content that our players want to see, we get to continue to see good business and continue to grow. So as a game maker, I think it shifts slightly what you're trying to do as a designer. Sorry, I'm going off on a kind of weird tangent here, but as a designer, my job is less about coming up with what this game needs to be, and it's more about kind of curating an experience, which is something that is a combination of things that our players are asking for, the team wants to see, the trends in gaming are sort of all leading towards, and how do we curate that experience into something that is going to be the exact end result that our players want, because giving our players the exact end result that they want is the way that we are successful with our products. And so to me, I think that basic bargain is a really good one. And it's a really beneficial one, both for game makers and for players. And for us, that made it be a no-brainer for us to go with free-to-play.
Yeah, well, for us, we've had some success with our games, previous versions of OMD on digital distribution. But, internally, we've always wanted to, or we always iterate on our games internally. Well, going free to play, getting the game out in front of people early, having that feedback from them allows us to iterate on the game internally and with our fans. Really get that feedback quick, get it out in the next build if we want to. And have an IP that is new, even though we've been around for a little while, but it's still pretty new to a lot of people. Free to play gives us a great opportunity to get out there, have people try it out. If we make a great game and you love it, we've done our job. So, just getting rid of barriers. Even if it's on sale at Steam sale or on sale for any platform for $3, you still barrier. Free takes down that barrier.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that You know, as game creators, we want people to play what we create. And free-to-play, you know, before it was retail. That's how you got the game in people's hands. But now there's a whole new way to open up audiences and have them come and experience what you're creating, you're spending all that time putting into. And, you know, we're making a cooperative experience. We want people to come in and play together, be able to have their friends join them. And when there's no barrier to entry, it creates a way to, you know, have someone join you and play the game that really didn't exist before. And, you know, if they throw us a couple bucks, that's great. But it's awesome being a creator and have that opportunity to really connect with anybody.
Yep. And just from the perspective of a more kind of indie developer, we kind of approached that also. One of the positives that we saw in that model was that it gave us a lot of reach that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise have. Yeah. Like we didn't necessarily, we've been around a while, but a lot of our work has been ports and things like that. And so we're looking to get kind of our name out there and have it in a way that players could, you know, we wouldn't have to go through huge distribution channels and try and shout it out to the world. It would just be out there, and word of mouth is a big benefit to that kind of model. Everyone can try it and then tell their friends about it. So,
our path was a last-ditch effort to save the company. Basically, we made console games for single A budgets to compete with AAA large studios. We had a project canceled. We were laying off people in droves. And I think for at least the last 10 years, the shrinking middle for sort of mid-sized tier developers, combined with stuff being pulled back in-house, really started giving us no choice but to try something that was going to be without a publisher, and free-to-play was the only option for us, really. So Sony's willingness to let us do that without a publisher really turned things around for us and let us rehire back all those people and build the studio back up to something we want. And the iteration, the constant iteration, I think, is something else I just absolutely love, because it always felt like you had one shot. and you crunched your face off for that one shot, and then you just brace for impact. And now we have this dialogue with our players where they tweet at us, "You broke something," and we tweet right back, "Oh shit, okay, I'll fix it. I'll fix it on Monday when I fly back." So that's been a very serious transformation for us, and it's sort of interesting that we still get to be on a next gen console, but in a completely different kind of terms of engagement for us.
Yeah, I actually really love the Digital Extremes Cinderella story. I think it's a really, it makes us really happy as a platform to be able to foster success with smaller studios. Well, not that you guys are super small, but you're still, I think, in that indie realm, and really help build success for them and give them a chance to do things that maybe you couldn't do before. And I think that's a really exciting thing and really humbling.
Yeah, like work for hire was sort of like treading water, and and one product you'd kind of get your nose above, and then the next product your nose would be underwater. So what's really great about a service like Warframe is when you're sleeping, you're still kind of making a little bit of money, right? So that really is fantastic for us.
So
I have very positive feelings about free-to-play as a result.
It's super fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into your thoughts and some particulars about what's your approach with free-to-play game design? I mean, this is a hot topic right now, obviously. There's a lot of controversy around free-to-play and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for the gaming industry, and it's very polarized, right? And so we're clearly sitting on the other side of that argument, and I think that it'd be great for you folks, as I feel are really great representations of good free-to-play as opposed to evil free-to-play. What is your approach with free-to-play game design, and what's your method for building a cool, enjoyable free-to-play experience?
For us, it's really giving the player as much as we possibly can, and not trying to force them down any route to either spend money or do something they don't want to do. Obviously, we haven't proven this model since we haven't released this free-to-play game yet, but we really believe that free-to-play is less about paywalls and stopping the player and forcing them to pay for something, and more just about giving them an experience that they love so much that they want to either give back and support the experience, or want to expand the experience and monetize in a different way.
Yeah, I think most of us here kind of come from a more traditional game background, so we're first and foremost interested in making a good game and making it for us ourselves and the sort of players that we're used to making these for. And I think like that always weighs in first and foremost. Is not like how do we milk for cash, but just how do we make this thing good, and then let's look at how to then make a value there that is worth actually contributing money towards.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, the focus of making the game is making a fun game, a game that we enjoy, a game we think people are going to find rewarding. You do want to take the business model into consideration because you don't want to make it feel tacked on, because sometimes when it feels tacked on, it feels like it may be disingenuous. But so you want to take that into consideration as when you're designing the game. But in the end, that's the focus is make a great game. People will stay. And if they want to expand their experience, like Alexander mentioned, then they'll spend money to expand that experience.
Yeah, I think that right now it's really the audience is maturing. For a long time, free-to-play was something that, especially in the West, that wasn't what people did. And you had the whole, the pay-to-win stigma that existed in so many other markets that we had to kind of deal with. And I think that, for us, we had we're a sequel to a retail title. We're coming out and we have our customers going, oh my gosh, you're gonna, pay to win everything. There's going to be loot drop changes and all those kind of things that we really don't want to see. And we have to find ways to communicate to our player base even before we go out the gate saying, this is not the way we're going to do this for you guys. We're going to create a really awesome experience. We're going to protect, for us, we're going to protect the player growth, the power that they have. We're not going to do game advantage, but there's going to be opportunities for you to spend money if you want to do that. That can help, change the way your character looks or things like that. And it's interesting because, for a long time, I think that's what people would say is the wrong way to do it. Like they would say, put those barriers in and find ways to convert players by putting these hard, the third builder from the mobile games, whatever it might be. And, you have games like Path of Exile that go out there and they just, nope, pure cosmetics and inventory. We're not going to do anything else. And we watch that and we find a lot of inspiration from that. We're like, we can find ways to make a really enriching game and then, find soft ways for people to monetize if they find excitement in what they're playing. And it's been a lot of fun for us, at least getting ready to go down that road. I think to what you were saying, it's making that great game first. And then not tacking it on, I guess, but finding ways to create those monetization loops that are completely positive and very, altruistic, very positive for everyone, not just the player that's paying, but the ones that aren't paying as well.
So let's get into a little bit of real talk.
Hold on. I'm gonna be the contrarian of the group here. Actually, I'm gonna disagree a little bit because I actually have a slightly different opinion. I think that the business model for the game needs to be the first page of the design doc. And it's because I think that you need to make sure that your business model doesn't compromise the game design. And that you're building a business model that feels like it's actually going to support the players and support the game in a way that's responsible, and you're not going to be forced to then go back through and make compromises of, oh, you know what? We don't have enough monetization paths. We need to get a alternate one in here that wasn't thought of beforehand and now is doing something that actually screws with your basic gameplay. And I think 3-4 years ago, we were looking at a lot of free-to-play games that were coming out with really exploitative models because 3 or 4 years ago, a free-to-play game was a $50 retail game that didn't make enough money and needed to get switched over to being a free-to-play game to be able to make more money. Nowadays, the games that are coming out are AAA quality, free-to-play from the get-go, and they have business models that are there to support the actual gameplay and not bend people over to try to extract every penny out of them to be able to get the most out of the game. And I think really the watershed was League of Legends for that. And what League of Legends was able to do with building that entire genre around a business model that didn't compromise gameplay for you to be able to have an extremely profitable game. And I think that now all the other free-to-play games, well, actually 2 or 3 years ago, all the other free-to-play games were following that model, trying to figure out how can we make our games like that. And now there's other ones that are coming up and are better and better. And more I hear Warframe is the one that we're supposed to be chasing now. And I think that that's great because it just means that they're finding a better path to deliver what game audiences are looking for. And then the other developers are kind of looking at that and saying, oh yeah, no, that's a better way. We should follow that one now.
The pragmatic answer for us is this approaching free-to-play design is you trade money for time, not money for power. That's kind of what we did in our game, completely by accident. Wasn't first page of anything. I read all the GDC slides about free to play, in a binge sitting for 1 week, and I made a mock-up of a crafting system, and we put it in the game, and that forever changed the game, and it changed the way we engage players about paywalls, and now we have grind walls. I mean, that's literally what it is. In terms of, if you want to speak disparagingly about it, that's what happens. And then the other thing that we added kind of recently is trade. And what is really rad about trade, even though it really terrified us because we thought we'd screw everything up, is it allows a person to trade in-game time for in-game actual premium currency. They basically get to offer a service for a paying player to skip a wait for something they can't even obtain. That makes both parties happy, and the amount of good and happiness rises for both parties and for us. And that was actually something that we learned from Valve. Valve, you know, we had several conversations with them very early on in the game, and they kept saying this phrase, which just blew me away. It's like, increase the good. Increase the good. And we're like, we're afraid of trade. It increases the good. And it was just like, that was like our tagline for a while internally. So, yeah.
I think that's what I heard both of you guys say is something that we talk about a lot, which is right now there are no key like golden ticket ways to do any of this stuff. It's changing. You know, for a long time, long time recently, everyone was talking about League. And that's the way that you approach things, and you try to find, you know, your version of that monetization structure. And to your end, you know, Warframe is out there making waves and changing the way people are looking at that. And we're trying to go, okay, well, how do we become the next thing? You know, what is the next thing that players are wanting to digest? And that's where, I mean, I'm going to say that's where like the game design of art comes in, because there's, you know, players see what people are doing and they want to see a shifting experience. They want to find something that's fresh and new. And I think that extends to monetization as well. You know, they have certain things that they're paying for, and they're like, okay, I was comfortable doing it this way, but I'm this kind of gamer and I want to experience a game with these kind of things, and you know, show me something different that I can now spend money for. And we talk about that a lot to figure out how do we, you know, how do we change what our audience is going to perceive when they come into our gates. And I think that's, we use the term Wild West a lot. You know, you're never really sure what's going to happen until you get out there. And you know, free-to-play allows you that, in the game design side at least, that iteration time that you never could have done before. And trying to find those new angles is part of the challenge and part of the fun.
That was awesome. Thanks, guys. So if we look at sort of the dark side of free-to-play and where this controversy is coming from with sort of the predatory game design and monetization tactics, what's everyone's thoughts on that, and how that's affecting, you know, the world that you live in, and how we can kind of shift that? You know, what's everyone's thoughts on that?
I think the first way it affects it is just the perception issue of just like trying to combat that negative stereotype and say, no, really, we understand, we hate that too. Like, we want to try and be as fair and good about this as possible. But for a lot of people, it's just an immediate turn-off switch. You just hear that, and you think the worst examples of Facebook games and things that everyone hates, and you're like, I don't want a goddamn tomato from my friend anymore. Like, this is done. Like, and you think that, okay, I don't want that in my console either. Like, I'm done with that. So, like, you know, just getting over that initial, like, perception hump, I think, is like the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, the perception hump is interesting because what you're fighting half the time is the perception of greed. You know, you have your players out there going, oh, you're just going to free-to-play to make more money. And I think, I mean, of course, we're all in business, but a lot of us just want to make great games. You know, find a way to, like you were saying, the mid-core part of this business is brutal right now. It's really hard to find an angle that you can make money and support a team and build really awesome content. And we're just trying to find ways to go out there, give our players something they want to play, and keep our developers employed and make cool stuff. And I think that negative stereotype about the greed and the evil of it is something that we're all kind of combating right now and trying to figure out, hey, you know, we're making a game that you guys can all play for free, and then we also need a way to keep the lights on too.
But luckily, there's lots of broken premium titles this year, which is really helping quality perceptions. And we try to fix them fast. I mean, that's one of the things that's been interesting from Sony's perspective in terms of pushing policies and pushing how you do service-based games. Right, which just like it blows up everything, and how the old approach has been, and that's constantly, you know, our frustration, and it's you know, PC for us is press a button, like literally go over and press a button, and that time, at least on your side, has become incredibly shorter, and that's sort of one of the ongoing challenges for us.
And we've sucked at that, admittedly, very badly when we first started, because that's not the world we came from, right? And and not to say that we're even close to being perfect yet, but I think we have made significant strides in our policy changes and reform
absolutely,
to make your life a little easier. And we're not even done yet. You know, we've just started. So.
Oh, I mean, the time, that sort of turnaround time has shrunk by an order of magnitude. It's been incredible. But yeah, I think Wild West, and I think it's still very emotional decisions in free-to-play. It's very emotionally charged. And the early years, the early year of Warframe was people wouldn't buy because they wanted to buy, they wanted to support the idea. And it became this sort of loyalty thing. And I thought that was fine, and it becomes really personality-driven. And it seems to be a little maturing somewhat, but yeah, it is very emotionally charged.
I think that we say free-to-play, but free-to-play means a lot of different things. There's a huge difference between a free-to-play iOS game or a free-to-play Facebook game and the type of games that we're working on here. I watched that South Park episode like everybody else did, and I was sitting there going like, yeah, exactly. And then everybody's like, yeah, I mean, that's your game. And I was like, not really, man. Like, it's kind of different. Like, it's a completely different thing.
For the record, I am the Canadian Department of Mobile Gaming. Right? I am Canadian.
Kind of, yeah.
So, my fault.
I mean, I think all of the concepts for basically all of the games that we up here are working on are really nothing like that at all. It just happens to share the same name, so it, some of the stigma sort of rubs off on the things that we do, and players log in and they think, oh, well, that guy who killed me with something. He must have paid for that. It must have been like a better thing that he bought. And we get that all the time. We have gold versions of some of our guns, right? I know, it's terrible. But we've got gold versions of our guns that do the exact same thing as the regular versions of them, but they cost a little bit more and they've got some bling associated with them. People get killed by those and they don't really know they don't know the game very well. It's kind of hard to fault them for assuming that somebody like paid to win and killed them with the golden bullet or whatever, Because so much of our growing up on games has sort of taught us to think that the thing that looks cooler is the thing that's better, and if you're selling the cosmetic variant that really is just for, cool factor, it's very easy to perceive that thing somehow gave that other person an advantage. So we're constantly kind of fighting upstream against that perception, I think.
I think what you said, Matt, in the beginning especially is totally true. I think most gamers on PS4 and console and PC have smartphones and are used to free-to-play from mobile. And I think our mobile cousins are doing a not a great job often at making quality free-to-play games. Which is not necessarily their fault. They've seen what works there, and certain things really work there with paywalls and energy. But we need to sort of teach them how to do it now, so that when they eventually start making deeper experiences like we're starting to see now on mobile, they do it right, and that the gamers coming from mobile or going from console PC to mobile know what really free-to-play games should be like.
And I think, like, to say, the evils of free-to-play, we spend a lot of our time just trying to communicate to our audience what it is we're planning to do. And when we first announced we were going to free-to-play with a sequel of Dungeon Defenders, everyone's going, oh, God. Like, change loot chance, do all these things. And we're going, no, we started using the term, actually, I think we borrowed from Path of Exile, the ethical monetization, ways that people are not going to feel abused or feel like the people that they're playing with. And to what you were saying before about learning from Valve, we talk a lot about positive externalities and making sure that when anyone spends anything in our game, we want everyone else to feel good about that. We don't want anyone to look at you and go, oh, you spent money, so that sucks for me. And it's tough because players they walk in with this preconceived notion of what you're doing, and you spend that early time trying to convince them. My hope personally is that changes. As we're coming to, PlayStation 4 has more free-to-play games that are coming out there. You kind of build that faith with your customers, all of us, and they come and go, okay, there's a way to do this that's actually comfortable, that's good, that's going to make a better experience for us in the long run, where we can get games that live for years and have really awesome content, that dynamic relationship where features change based on what people are saying. That's available to me because there's this new way that I'm able to pay and consume this content. It's really about changing that perception, I think. That's a big part of it.
So I think that, this is my obvious statement of the day, is that it's a very community-driven experience with free-to-play in particular. I think that, most free-to-play games have a multiplayer element, whether it's adversarial or co-op. So let's talk about how what great lengths and many of you go to be involved with your community, to cultivate, support, and get your community interacting and involved with shaping your game experience. Let's hear about what your company and what your particular games are doing, and how you're structuring that internally.
Yeah, for us, it's been a very exciting journey. We, you know, Dungeon Defenders 2 has been in development for about 1 year and 4 months. And when, you know, we were working on PC first, and within 3 months of us starting the game, we started this thing called the Defense Council. We're basically let in 500 players to, they were not even pre-alpha builds. It was like a slice of gameplay with a couple little pieces, and we turn it on for a weekend. We let these 500 people play, and we turn it off. We do live streams with them. We do exclusive forums with them to communicate, and we have dramatically changed the shape of our game over the last year based on that feedback. And you know, heading into, you know, we just went early access on Steam the other day, so that's really exciting for us. You know, we just implemented this new system called Influence. It's actually featureizing players giving us feedback. So we have a way where every time someone logs into our game or logs into our website, they actually gain a vote, a voice that they can use to communicate to us. And we put up decisions to them. You know, we're just starting this. We have our alpha of the influence system up right now, but it allows people to come to our site, you know, see decisions that we're trying to make about the game, real decisions that we're debating about internally, and then based on how many times they log into our game every single day, days on end, communicate that to us with their voice, with these influence points. And we're really excited to see how that goes. You know, we thought that for us going into early access, you know, and then, you know, coming to PS4 down the road, we wanted to find new ways to just change the way that loop of communication could happen. And it's one thing to do a live stream, it's one thing to do a forum post, it's something completely different to featureize that and to let players make that part of the game experience. Me communicating to the developers what I want to see happen to the game is now part of the game itself. And we're super excited to see how that evolves for us over time.
That's very cool.
Yeah, we've done a very similar thing on Steam Early Access. We launched the game a little over 1 year ago in super pre-alpha, you know, just playable. And straight away, even before that, we're starting to talk to the community and build a community on Facebook and a forum and Steam forums now, and talk to them about the features, what we're working on, really try to give them an idea of what we are working on and what we're working on next, and get them talking about the next features, so that we can sort of get their input already. And then once we release something, we obviously talk about what we've done, the changes we made, the decisions made behind it, and then get people's feedback. In the first few weeks after a big update, we're usually tweaking and changing a few things that the users give us feedback on that we totally see it was the right decision. And we'll I think, continue to do that. And as a game as a service, this is the greatest thing. You know, Call of Duty can't just like change things drastically. You know, they're already working on the next title, and we can continue working with our community and those people that are, you know, spending money and supporting us, get them a right to vote. And I think what you guys are doing are really cool.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, as developers, when we were talking about influence and how we wanted to create this thing, you have to not be scared to let your community tell you you don't know what you're doing sometimes. And that's been very interesting for us. You know, we have had to make big changes, you know, not small ones. We put real, you know, challenges out there. Like just recently we had a certain way we were doing our item system, and they came to us and said, nope, yeah, we don't like that. And we're going, all right, we'll throw the whole thing out and do it again. And we did. I mean, we scrapped everything we've been building for about 4 months, threw it away, rebuilt the whole thing based on what their notes were, and we came out with that patch, you know, to the defense counselors about 3 weeks ago. They're like, yes, like, this is great. And you have to not be scared to put those decisions to your community and then really help them influence what you're going to do.
And ego-driven. I think it's pretty humbling, right?
Yeah.
When you're told fairly regularly that some of the stuff you're doing sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying a couple questions ago is you really do shift. I mean, I started as a game designer, and my job was very much about writing a document that basically explained what a player's experience in the game was going to be, and then making sure that that experience that programmers and artists put together matched that. Of course, you iterate with your team that's working on building that, and you're all working on the best thing. It's not like there's a dictator coming in and saying, it has to be exactly like this, but now it's very different. My experience is very much like a curator. I think I said earlier. You really are taking ideas from a lot of different places, and what you're trying to do isn't paint every single masterpiece that's in there yourself. It's make sure that there's an overall experience as you're going through it that makes sense, is cohesive, and is what your players want to see. So things like your influence system. I mean, we have a roadmap. I think most games nowadays have a roadmap that they're talking about that kind of stuff on. You guys don't. But at any rate, we have lots of different inputs to having players give the ability to say, hey, this is the next thing we really want to see. This is the most important thing. And this thing that you guys did last time isn't good. We don't want this anymore. And whether we're doing that on live streams, which we do live streams quite frequently, whether we're just having those conversations on Twitter, we have a really healthy Reddit community, and I'm sure that anybody who's running a free-to-play game now understands the importance of that. All of those things are really just about making sure that you're getting as many ideas kind of talked about and fleshed out as possible, and then picking the ones that make the most sense, the ones that you can develop against responsibly, and the ones that you feel like are going to push your game and the experience that your game is trying to convey forward. I think that is sort of the new model of live free-to-play game development, and it's very, very different than developing a game in any other way. Even if you're working on an MMO. Even if you're working on an MMO game for 10 years, it's a totally different thing working on a free-to-play versus working on an MMO. You can't just be the wellspring of everything that goes into the game anymore. It really needs to be coming from your players.
Yeah, we're still in closed beta, so we're got a much smaller, tighter community. We have a TeamSpeak server we set up for our alpha players, and people still log in, and we get on and we play and use that to play, and we sit there and chat and talk. Sometimes they're playing other games, and they're on TeamSpeak on that server, and we sit there and talk about features that we've just added, about the most recent patch, stuff where sometimes we give them heads up on what's coming out, and get feedback directly from them, and actually build relationships with these early founders that are really into the game, because we feel like that's going to be the core group that will help us grow the community as the game moves to open beta and to launch.
Community is sort of the thing that we put foremost in Warframe, which when we started the project, I paid lip service to that idea, and then I had to actually pay service to that idea. I think it's an inversion that in the past, under prior projects, we worked for a publisher, which tended to be maybe 2 or 3 people that would sign off a milestone so you could make payroll, and now it's become an inversion. So our community management is part of the leads group in the company that's sort of part of the emergency room service of the game. And they are as much an important driver of the change of the game than any other lead or creative impulse that I might have. So that it really is a bizarre inversion where I sort of say, oh, we're going to work for the players, and I had no clue what that actually meant and how much asbestos underwear I'd have to buy to survive that. But that's actually literally what it is, which is really interesting. And you become a chef, and you're only as good as your last meal, which is kind of empowering for the players, I think, in some ways, because, man, they can just leave and you're dead. So it really keeps us on our toes, and we have not worked harder in our lives on this game for the past several years, because you'll do an update and it kind of sucks, and then things are going to, in the community, starts kind of getting into revolt, and you're not communicating the message enough, you didn't warn them about a specific change, if they feel like you're directionless and you're just making arbitrary changes. So really the community management is really, really important. So I don't know why we have just millions of accounts now in our forums. It's just a torrent of feedback. Managing that feedback and turning it into useful information now, I think in closed beta, it used to be a one-on-one engagement, and it used to be something where you'd read every post, and now it's give me the executive summary, because just the voices become so loud. So that we've had to change our approach that way as well, and the community team now creates a fireboard, and here's the top 10 issues, and here's the top 10 things that suck about the game. So it really scales weird, but yeah, it's incredible.
We're also lucky to be in a time where, with crowdfunding being so prevalent, people are really engaging with the developers and having this FaceTime with them where they can give them their feedback and people are listening to it, and platforms are giving us developers a chance to release our games while in development and patch them with seemingly risky patches and make changes on the fly, which we weren't able to do 5 years ago.
Yeah, just to kind of riff on that a little bit, I agree that a lot of this, as with the monetization and everything else, is very experimental. So with our community engagement, I mean, we do the kind of obvious things. We hit up Twitter and we do Facebook and we have forums and we engage a lot with that. We do TeamSpeak sessions with a lot of our sort of more core players who've been around a while. We've made deputies of several of them that kind of help then also filter up that information, because as you say, it can be like an endless torrent of just different opinions and like contradictory opinions, and just trying to get anything kind of coherent out of that is a challenge sometimes. But we've discussed, discussed but not kind of rolled on things like, let's see how much of the game we can really open up and just say like, would you guys like to take a shot at weapon balance? How about that? Like, would you guys like to see like how these things kind of work behind the scenes? Because you seem very engaged and very passionate about these things. So let's see kind of how far we can push that. And I think we're still kind of really trying things out all the time, just kind of learning as we go.
You know what I love about it, though? I love that they call us out on the things that we do wrong, and we make better games because of it. And that's the part that I find most enriching. We had one of those aha moments where we were going down a certain direction, and we were our defense counselors were coming to us and going, "You guys do realize that you're not making the game that we want, right? Like, what you're doing right now is not exactly where we want you to be." And we had the developer blinders on. We were just doing what we thought as artists were going to be the best thing for our game. And every time we have opened that door more wide, we've gotten them to call us out, and then we make a better product because of it. And we would come back to them and say, "Hey, we heard you. You've influenced what we've made. Here's our next iteration." They go, "Okay, that's so much better." And I honestly don't think, at least where we're at right now, coming into hopefully, in early access successfully, and then going on PS4 later this year, I don't think we'd have the game we would right now if it wasn't for that. And I love that. I mean, it's such a unique experience. Before, when you were in retail, you'd sit there and tool away for 2 years, send it across the fence, and hope to God that it was good. And sometimes it wasn't, sometimes it wasn't. And nowadays, it's like, oh no, now we can fix that. We'll deal with it. And it's really, really exciting to see that happen.
It's also like, it's the best and it's the worst thing. It's the largest source of stress, at least for me personally. It is absolute. No, it really is. And I think in the past, the largest sources of stress might come from team conflict, or it might come from technical challenges, or it might come from developer-publisher relationships and disagreement about like high-level creative ideas. It's a totally different experience, and I think that once your audience gets this critical mass, and especially when people don't have a financial investment, we were talking about that before we came on, where they're really, if you buy a box product, there's a cognitive dissonance that you can't dislike it because you spent the money on it. And if your game's reasonable size, there's really not a big investment there, so they can really bring out the worst in people, I think, sometimes. And we were talking about this before, which I think deserves mention, is that even for players that haven't supported you financially, they feel that they supported you with their time. And although they don't really see that, well, that kind of cost us rather than profiting us. That said, I think the good thing about that player, and I think the general attitude in like Asian markets about free-to-play, is those free players give other paying players people to engage with and trade and that sort of thing, balances that out. So I always try to remind myself that when someone with 10,000 hours says your game sucks and I hate you, I go, okay, well, I guess he was around for those 10,000 hours and maybe was, teaching people how to play or something like that. But really, the community is that massive ball of thunder that replaces all of the other things that they seem really trivial now, whether or not your frame rate's bad, or whether or not your memory consumption is too high.
It's definitely, when you open yourself up to that kind of feedback, the worst thing that can happen is when you get like strong factions that want things in a couple different ways. It can be really, really challenging to try to thread the needle sometimes between what is going to be bad for the game and what players want you to do to the game right now.
What is the end game of Warframe used to literally be shit posting in our forums. That was the end game content, and it really I just remember at one point talking to Rebecca, our community manager, and I'm thinking it through and thinking about it, and it finally dawned on me that it was. When people in the back seat get bored of the trip, they start fighting, and really that we kind of upped our game in trying to communicate new, exciting ideas, because if they got bored with the existing content, this fury builds, right? Why aren't you entertaining me? I'm done with this sort of thing. So,
and that's tricky too, because you have the volume of a very small number of people can be extremely extremely loud, and it's incredible watching that. You'll put a patch out or you'll make a change, And you know as a developer, hey, in the long run, this is going to be a more enriching experience for you. The balance is going to be better. The gameplay is going to be better. But they go on that forum instantly and go, what the hell were you thinking when you changed this thing that I've been playing with for a couple hundred hours? And that was one of our philosophies about trying to systemize it. Because we're like, we want to even out that voice. We want to find ways to kind of balance it so we can get not just that vocal forum person, but also the people that are enjoying the game that aren't really posting. And that's actually, I think, one of the hardest things to deal with when it comes to community interaction, because the people who are mad, like really mad, they're going to always post.
Yeah, people that are happy are playing the game.
They're going to be playing the game. They're not going there going, I love you guys with like 500 responses to that thread. That's not what they talk about. They're going to I'm going to sit here and play and spend some money and have a good time.
You get one of those on your birthday.
Yeah, that's right. You know, what you get is the person who's going on that had the 1,000 hours that now hates you. Yep. And you have to find a way to, like you said, thread that needle and walk that line. It is, you're right. It is the biggest form of stress when it comes to building this stuff.
I just wanted to balance it, because it kind of sort of sounded negative there, and I know this is being recorded, so I kind of wanted to balance that out. But it is also the most gratifying thing that our team as a whole has never experienced, being able to say, well, I'm an artist, and I made the Ice Cave level, and now I get to go into the forums and read people playing it the day after it shipped. Yeah. And it really has caused, at least for our team, it has made us up our game, up our commitment. I've never seen our team more engaged on any product I've worked on in the last 15 years of game development. They are freaking engaged from QA, all tiers of the company, all divisions of the company, the animators going in and saying, oh, that one guy doesn't like the katana attack that I did. I want to redo it. Steve, can we put it out in the next hotfix? And now they can, and so that community feedback is fuel for passion in the company. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm not just saying, I'm stressed out.
It's okay. We know you're not an asshole. It's fine.
The fuel that requires the asbestos
underwear. Asbestos underwear. Yes, exactly. The flame can burn in both ways.
Oh, that was a really awesome dialogue there. And you guys actually covered a couple of my questions anyways, so fantastic. So I'd like to just ask one more question, try to keep it a little more brief so that we can let the audience have a chance to come. No offense, no offense. I mean that in the most loving way. Talk about some of your favorite free-to-play games. What are you guys playing as, game developers and those who are in the industry? What are you playing in free-to-play these days?
I play tons of World of Tanks. I'm a huge World of Tanks player. I've been playing since the beta. I have my premium account and my gold tanks. And it's been a challenge for them, as a player, experiencing what they've gone through and how they've changed over the years. And early on, these first couple of years, it was wallet warriors were the ones that were destroying the game because they buy tanks. But when you play the game, you realize that content just gives you more options. It allows you to play in different tiers or whatever. So you learn. So as a developer, you start playing these games and you start learning and say, okay, that model does not fit with most games. They did a great job of integrating their design and their monetization model to make it feel good, and they've been very successful in it. But you can still learn a lot from games that you enjoy that are free to play.
For me, it's actually been PlanetSide 2 and Warframe, actually. So it's good that you guys are here. I enjoy those games a lot.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I really, really love MOBAs. And I really love shooters, so I spend a lot of time in Valve games, Valve free-to-play games. And I played about 600 hours of PlanetSide this year, which, to me, being able to go home and you were saying that the game is one of your biggest sources of stress. I agree with you completely, and it's a really weird thing for me to have my single biggest source of stress in the world also be my biggest stress reliever. Like I go home and I play PlanetSide and I play on a character called Higby, so anybody in the game can send me tells complaining about stuff. And so I'm kind of it's sort of masochistic, but at the same time there's nothing I like more than driving home and going and playing my game for a few hours. And so that to me is, I've never had that before on any other project I've ever worked on.
That's a good sign.
And
yeah, and you like it.
Exactly. Well, sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one with the tells I get, but
we at the office we play a lot of Valve free-to-play games, especially Dota. The issue we have is that since releasing on Steam Early Access, a lot of our community members have added us on Steam. So when we do boot up a game of Dota, whether it's during the day for one pickup game, or in the middle of the night on the weekend, we get like messages saying like, "Why are you working on the game? Like, you got 300 hours on Dota, but why do you only have like 10 hours on Snow?" And it's like, well, we have a development version that doesn't log the hours on Steam, so give us a chance.
Yeah, we've taken to put ourselves offline when we go play any other games for that reason.
Yeah, I think as developers, you're always playing everything that's coming out, especially in the free-to-play space, because we were talking about before, it's the Wild West, and things are moving so fast, you got to keep up. But personally, I've actually really enjoyed Smite. I think Hi-Rez has been a lot of fun to watch. We were talking earlier about making changes based on feedback, and those guys, they are so aggressive at changing things. So I've seen that UI go through, like 10 iterations, and they have no fear. And they add content in super fast. The game is really exciting. I've really enjoyed. One of the things that I thought was most interesting when they were first starting out, they had that $30 hero pack, right? And it was, these are going to only be up till when we go out of beta. And they went, forget that. We're going to give you all the heroes forever. And when I saw them make that announcement, I'm going, really? Like, that's what you guys are going to do? That's incredible. And what was interesting is watching everyone go, all right, yeah, I'm going to buy that. Like, it was that was so exciting and so interesting, because you'd seen League where you had to pay for all the new content and the new heroes, and that wasn't a negative. That was just how you consume that kind of thing. And you'd figure any good successful mobile is going to kind of follow that model. And Hi-Rez came out and went, nope, we're gonna give you everything. You pay $30, all the heroes are yours, and then we'll find cool ways for us to monetize on the cosmetics after the fact. And I enjoyed that quite thoroughly. I've learned a lot from watching them.
That's pretty cool. Okay, let's open it up to the floor. Come on up to the mics. Ask
Don't trample each other.
Order. Need some order. I had like a financial question, because it seemed pretty unanimous that you all agreed that step one is to make a good game. Like, you still are game developers. You want the game to be high quality and enjoyable. And then monetization and income comes after that. You are still a business. But how do you cross that first hurdle? How do you have enough resources, team members, or money to make brilliant or beautiful games and then sustain it afterwards?
Well, it's easy. Just find a bag of money. Yeah, it varies, I think, from person to person. In our case, we made contract work for 17 years and saved up a war chest, and then were able to do it. But it varies from person to person. You find publishers or you find outside source. More and more crowdfunding becomes a thing. So there are options out there, but it is definitely a tricky way to start, because you can't like bank on that first day sales. You're just like, okay, here it is.
We were very fortunate to be able to work as a team of 3 until we got something reasonably good enough to release on early access, where we then sold the game as pay to play. And that gave us enough resources to actually sort of start working on redoing things and building the team, and that's gotten us here today.
Yeah, I think for us it was scrappiness. We started as a small indie studio a number of years ago with like 6 people when we first made the original Dungeon Defenders, and never really expected it to succeed like it did. And that's you get grateful to your community that got excited about that first game and kind of gave us the financial leeway to try to make the second one, the sequel. But it's a challenging industry when it comes to that. Trying to find the way to get enough time and resources to produce something really good quality. It takes energy, it takes money, and all of us, I'm sure, have many different stories about how we got there.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, you can either bootstrap, which is basically what you're talking about doing, live really cheap for a couple years with a few people, all in one apartment. You can have a rich uncle. That's always a good way to start. That's like the easy mode in Oregon Trail start, Or you can have just a mind-blowing idea, or like a really amazing individual who's able to like accomplish a lot, or a really amazing group of people who are able to accomplish a lot and build something that you very obviously see promise in, and then you can shop for investors, or maybe at a slightly lower level you could go to Kickstarter or something like that. But at that point, that is still basically bootstrapping, right? You have some super genius who could be working for Microsoft making $500,000 a year, like Notch, right? And instead he's like building Well, yeah, but I'm talking 7 or 8 years ago, right? But he instead spends his time building something himself, and then says, you know what, this is something that we can grow, or we can build a product off of. Any of those ways I've been seen be successful, multiple ways, but none of those ways are you just wake up in the morning and it happens. You know what I mean? I think almost all of us would be working for Last Name Incorporated, our Last Name Incorporated, if it were that easy to just start a game company and make your own game just because you wanted to.
Yeah, and any three of those avenues are definitely the way to go, but in the end it's still far harder than it seems when you start. And especially as free-to-play games, the amount of extra things you need to consider and build in the back end and the front end. It's just, I mean, we're still realizing things that we completely ignored for the first 2 years, and it always makes it more fun.
Cool.
In your experience designing free-to-play games, in retrospect, have you ever made a design decision that you consider evil?
That you considered evil?
Yes.
Yeah, so when we were in closed beta, I had this really cool idea that we would have a level cap, and then you'd pay to unlock the level cap. And we called it GoPro, and I did the UI myself, and I did all the programming. I thought it was going to be totally awesome, and then yeah, we shipped it, and our community exploded. And what struck me and was my first lesson in free-to-play was the people that were raging had paid for the game. And they had bought Grandmaster Founder packs that cost $250, and they didn't want this in the game. They had disposable income, and what it mattered was they wanted to bring their friends into the fold, and they couldn't because of that. And we ripped it out in a weekend.
I think just to talk on what you said, I think that's basically fragmentation and that's something that we really are fighting against, making sure we have a game with an open world, and we want to make sure that we don't fragment the user base, so that if they are playing together, which I think all these games have multiplayer co-op components to, is make sure that anybody, whether you're a Wales and you bought everything in the game, and you bring your friend that just started, you can still play together and have a fun time together.
Yeah, I mean, fragmentation, I think, is probably one of the biggest evils. With Clone Wars, we actually designed a lot of it to be member limited, so you could get a way through a campaign of mini games, but you couldn't finish the last few unless you were a member. And that's pretty exploitative. I wasn't a huge fan of that. But with PlanetSide 2, we came in from the very beginning with the idea of anything that affects gameplay in any way, shape, or form can be unlocked through gameplay. And that mantra has basically, I think, prevented us from doing anything too evil in PlanetSide 2.
Yeah, we definitely started out with that approach. As soon as we moved to free-to-play model, that was our mantra. It's gameplay affecting things or not. There's no pay for power. It's always been kind of from day one. So, if anything, I guess the evil. So in some ways, we probably need to be a little more evil sometimes. But we. I heard that a lot. Yeah, we're like, man, we're not evil enough.
We got a lot of evil.
Yeah.
More evil.
But we if anything, maybe we err on the side of being a little bit ridiculous on prices on things to start with, because it's easier to pull that back and say, hey, actually we were wrong and it's cheaper now, and yay, than to go the other way. So we err on the side of that sort of evil, but that's as much as we go, I think.
And no, I forgot what it. No, to stop evil features creeping in, what we do is we basically sit down with the entire company and go over our free-to-play plans. That myself and my marketing manager have sort of worked on together. And usually we start on more of an evil side, and then by explaining it to our team, who are all core gamers, just die for these things, they sort of tell us what doesn't sound very good to them, and then it's a good discussion, and then usually all those features are ripped out, and we just back to square one.
Yeah, for us, we're a very collaborative team. That's kind of how we try to build our games. All of our, from QA all the way up, a lot of people have a good sized voice, and that's part of our philosophy when we get to the larger part of the community. So one of the great things about that is that your own team will often call you out when you're trying to be evil. You'll have, random level designer or programmer going, wait, are we actually even thinking about doing that? That's not the kind of game that I want to play, and then we hopefully self-correct. So, we're all gamers. We're all playing games and doing those things, and we have that kind of internal voice that sanity checks us from time to time, and that's good.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more quick question, and then we'll be out of time in about 2 minutes.
Okay. What role does data play in your guys' respective studios as far as assessing the validity of players' feedback and combining that to players' actual play patterns?
Yeah, we were just talking about this a little while ago. Data, I think, in free-to-play games especially, is huge. Getting feedback from players is a good way to know where there's fire. It's like smoke, right? You know that there's a fire over there, but you don't know exactly what the composition of the fire is unless you have extensive metrics. But the thing with metrics is you can absolutely be too myopic staring at metrics. And you need to know when it's the right time to make a decision based on metrics, and you need to know when it's the right time to make a decision based on your gut. Yeah. You can't be purely data-driven. I mean, some companies do. Some companies are purely data-driven, and a lot of what the end result product that they have is sort of more towards the line of what we had been talking about earlier with you know, things like timers and stuff like that. And they are enormously data-driven and enormously successful. But we are, I think, endeavoring to try to make games that require us to inject some artistry into them too. And that means that you can't just be purely data-driven. But I don't think any of our games, well, I can't speak for these guys. I know for a fact that our game would not work without having extensive, massive data calculation, just because just doing basic balance on our game would be impossible.
Gameplay, not for like monetization or.
Well, for monetization, it's important to know all the data too, right? And you want to know what your retention looks like, what your acquisition looks like. There's a lot of different data points that we're looking at, but the extent to which you drive your game design decisions and your business decisions to the data needs to be very kind of carefully managed. You can't be 100% driven by data.
And interpretation is, I find, a real bitch. Because you have some statistic and you're trying to make sense of it, and the interpretation can be on either side. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think what he was talking about really resonates with me too, because you need that information to see through the haze of just there's what's happening. You know, are you having people fall off after an hour or 3 hours, whatever those points are? But then I think that's where the artistry comes back in. You know, you have to sit there and with your design team and figure out, okay, this might be what the data is telling us, but don't just fix that specific thing. Figure out the collective problem that's going on, and let's find an elegant way to really inject that. They're missing a meta loop or a core experience that's not as polished as it should be. And interpreting that is where the magic comes in. I mean, that's where developers really, hopefully have a chance to express their artistry of being game developers. And I think that, in my opinion, it's if you go too much from data, you actually kind of flatten out the experience. It's like, I like vanilla ice cream, but it's like a vanilla. You lose the flavor, and you want to come in there and look at the information to aim you, but then artistically describe how you solve those situations.
Thank you so much, everybody. Please, big round of applause for our panelists. And thank you all again for coming, and enjoy the rest of your PlayStation experience, and come by and say hi to all of us in the expo. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
PlayStation